I am a man of many talents today. I'm going to be also running the buffet after we're done. I told Isa to have me as sort of the backup plan if anything goes wrong, and it seems that I'm going to be used a lot today. But good to see you, Jonas. You've been to Gaza recently, and Dan Church Aid has been working in Gaza since the 50s, I understand, a very long time. There is a sentiment that is echoed by virtually everyone that I know that has been to Gaza, journalists, people from the Red Cross, official governments, etc., where they say Gaza is completely different from any conflict zone they've ever been to. It's different from Ukraine, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, whatever disaster zone or genocide zone or whatever sort of catastrophe that humanity has seen in modern history, that Gaza goes well and beyond any of these. So you've been there. What did you see there that stood out as the most startling observations?
Can I first thank the three award winners for the testimonies? I really think it's a very strong thing. So thank you very much for sharing. It's really heartbroken to hear, but thank you very much. I visited Gaza in November last year, so just 1 month after the ceasefire on the 10th of October came into force. Being able to travel on some of the humanitarian buses that leave Tuesdays and Thursdays from Amman, and you can book a seat if you have activities in Gaza and you are approved by the Israeli authorities. We have had staff for many years, as you say. So of course I've been speaking to staff right from the 7th of October, listening to the witnesses, bringing those witnesses into the Danish media. But it was important for me also to see for myself. And many people have asked me what did I expect, and I didn't know what to expect really. And what I saw was a complete destruction, as we heard also. And I know, Miriam, you said that we should try and look forward, but I will just bear a little bit witness also to what I saw, because many of the people in Gaza that I spoke with, when they heard that I was from Denmark and that I was traveling to see some of the activities that we're supporting, some of the humanitarian suffering, they all really asked me to do one thing: bring that witness back to Denmark, speak about the situation. So that's important. I've been to situations of earthquakes. I've worked 25 years in Dan Church Aid and visited many different things. I've never seen the level of destructions that I saw in Gaza. Going to Gaza City, traveling around Gaza City, whole neighborhoods completely destroyed. I was standing in a small, not really a hill, but just somewhere where I could overlook, and probably 400 meters, 360 degrees, there was not one standing building. And that as we heard from Wael also, while I was there, probably every hour you would hear an explosion, which is the demolition that takes place in the Israeli-controlled parts of Gaza. You would hear drones zooming in. So that level of destruction, continued destruction, extremely controlled access for humanitarian actors, the death that Mogens Lykketoft just spoke to also of humanitarian workers, which now stand at 543 humanitarian workers that has been killed. There is nothing that I've seen that can compare to that.
I remember Peter Maurer, when he was the head of the International Red Cross. He went to Gaza in 2014, so over a decade ago. And that man has been to Afghanistan, to Yemen, to Iraq, to Syria. And the first sentence he made is, "I've never seen such destruction in my life." I've had a friend that went to Gaza during the first ceasefire in January 2025 through the US Department of Defense as a private contractor. He said the thing that stood out to him the most is basically the very thick stench of gunpowder and decomposing bodies, that it was everywhere, it's impossible to mistake. And the other thing was that nothing is standing at all. So it was basically the closest thing that was brought to his mind is Darfur, the genocide in Darfur in 2003. My other question is, now with all the work that you've been doing in Gaza, you have local partners, you have local staff, you've been working on humanitarian aid, on demining, etc. Israel very recently decided to ban you or deregister you and about 37 other international organizations in Gaza. Of course, this comes on top of UNRWA as well as an Israeli attack, even on the Red Cross. I've never understood this Israeli campaign of slamming the Red Cross as Hamas collaborators. I've never seen it in history except once. That was when Benito Mussolini was bombing Somalia. Back then, he claimed the Red Cross as part of the Somalian rebellion. So with this sort of unprecedented attack on multilateralism, with this unprecedented attack on your work as an international NGO, how does it impact the people of Gaza? How does it impact your staff? How does it impact your work? But also, doing work in Gaza comes with a heavy price as an international organization where you always face accusations of anti-Semitism, collaboration with Hamas, etc., etc. How do you manage to navigate all of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many different things. Let me start by saying that the deregistration process that is being forced by the Israeli authorities is taking place right now. By the end of February, our current registration in Israel is coming to an end, limiting our ability, for instance, to go into Gaza with international staff. So for me to go in November was crucial and quite important because that would not be possible anymore. We are working, as you said, with other Palestinian civil society organizations in Gaza and West Bank, also with Israeli civil society organizations that are documenting the atrocities and the genocide, like B'Tselem and Breaking the Silence. That work will, of course, continue. Our staff in Gaza, we will of course maintain contact with them and keep them as staff because we can continue to do so. So while there will be limitations, we will do our utmost really to continue our support. But I think there will be limitations, just like when UNRWA was shut down. The possibility to report back and support the humanitarian efforts will be constrained by this. I mean, I was speaking to diplomats before going into Gaza in November. None of them are allowed to visit. I was speaking to Danish journalists also. None of them are allowed to visit Gaza also. So to me, this is another step in trying to close really the space and the witness to what's going on. You're asking me also on sort of how it is to speak out. I've been called all sorts of things on social media. I'm sure that many of you have as well when you've been posting on Instagram or on Facebook and other things. So it does come with that. As a humanitarian organizations, we are of course also very aware that we would like to continue to be able to support our civil society partners, our own staff. So that license to operate is actually something that we pay quite a lot of attention to also when we communicate on the words that we are using, so that there is still the possibility to continue operating.
Yep. Oh, I cannot get the translator out of my head. Something is like compelling me to translate to Arabic. But okay. So, with the last question is, there's a body of literature about the use of humanitarian aid and the work of international organizations as a mechanism of counterinsurgency. So in Gaza, there would be some sort of growing skepticism because we've been under this state of non-life, this state of basically permanently being locked up in a cage, facing slow death punctuated by periodic massacres. And with that situation, people become skeptical. They say humanitarian organizations are basically playing a role in pacifying, in sustaining this cycle or this apartheid system, instead of actually breaking us out of it. How do you deal with this criticism?
Yeah, I think it's a criticism that we of course need to listen to, and I think we all the time need to question ourselves: are we becoming actually someone that support the silence and are not speaking out? And I think one of my worries has been that since the 10th of October, after the ceasefire came into force last year, the attention in media on what's going on in Gaza has really declined so rapidly. It's very little. Many people say, well, now there's a ceasefire and then so everything must be well, right? And that's of course not the case. I think as a humanitarian organization, we are of course not as such the architect behind the political situation as it is. So the best we can do is support human rights activists, we can support documenting what's going on, and we do that as much as we can. I have regular meetings with Danish politicians. I go to Brussels also to consult with people, with politicians, but also with the bureaucracy there to explain what we see and hear. And I think that's the commitment we can do. We organize trips also for Palestinian voices to come to Denmark also to talk about what's going. And I think that commitment needs to go hand in hand with the humanitarian support that we also want to continue to deliver.
Thank you so much. I also understand you bring Danish politicians to the West Bank.
Yeah.
Is there anything that stands out? Has there been any situation that they brought with them home that sort of created an impact?
We were traveling from Jerusalem and all the way down into the valley, and all along we could see empty villages of Palestinian villages, communities that had been completely burned out. We stopped with some of them, took pictures to see, and this had all happened in the last 12 to 24 months. So the severity of the situation and the way that the settlers have complete impunity to do whatever they want stood out as something that I think affected all the politicians we had with us.
Jonas, thank you so much, and please support the work of Den Church Aid.
Thank you.